One big question that comes up consistently is people want to know what my YouTube setup is like, what I use when I'm in my studio like I am right now, or when I go on backpacking trips. So I thought I'd take the time to kind of go over the gear that I use, and you'll realize that you actually don't need a whole lot to get started on YouTube. So the camera that you're looking at right now is actually the camera I've used in its previous generations the entire time. I just used my iPhone. And so from the very beginning of the channel, the phone that I used was the iPhone 6. And honestly, that filming is good enough. It does a really nice job of stable shots like this one if it's on a tripod, and it works really well for that. Where it didn't work great was that generation didn't have optical image stabilization. And so that didn't work as well. It tended to be shaky. It had digital stabilization, which tends to kind of make people kind of feel like they're seasick. And so where you'll notice a bump up in quality is when I usually will upgrade every 2 years or so to whatever the latest iPhone is. Just that way I try to keep up with the camera improvements that way. And so the iPhone 7 is the one that really stunned people when they saw the bump up from the 6, because the quality was so much better, and it does have optical image stabilization. So thinking about my filming on backpacking trips, what I use and I bring with me is I bring a battery pack, like the Anchor battery pack that I've shown a lot of times in budget gear videos. And I typically will bring something like this mini tripod. And it's very simple to set up shots. I can wrap it around tree branches if I need to. I can just set it up at the end of the trail to set up some shots of me walking to or walking away from it. And it weighs, to me, practically nothing, maybe 2 ounces at most. And so one thing I will recommend for any tripods that you bring on backpacking trips or anything, especially where you use your phone, is to bring an extra one of the cell phone holders, because I've broken, I don't know, 3 or 4 at this point, just to get jammed against a rock or something happens, and then I can't use my tripod. So this is one thing I use, especially on backpacking trips. Something else I've used quite a bit on trips and more here in the studio, of course I'm not using it now, and is this AccuVeyor tripod. It's actually just about a pound. And once again, you see I've broken off the cell phone holder on this one. It does a much better job setting up a higher level shot. And so I tend to bring this with me in the summer months, or if I'm having more of a camping style video, because it's light that I don't have to necessarily worry about it, granted a pound, but it's not something, if I'm focusing more on the hike, I typically will not bring this. In terms of a monopod or a selfie stick, I actually don't bring any of that stuff. All the shots that you've seen me take on backpacking trips, all they're done by is me reaching out my arm. Most of you guys recognize this, but all of them have been like that. I just, depending on the angle, right, if I want to switch things up, I usually will just switch arms, and that just tells you in terms of how tall I am that I'm able to get that much reach out there. That tends to work well for me, as well as when I am backpacking on the go, you're walking. I don't necessarily want to have to stop and set up a shot or pull out a selfie stick, and it just seems awkward to me. And so just holding it in my hand so far has worked. This camera has a wider lens than I've used before, the iPhone XS, and so I'm not sure exactly how shots will look from now on, but I'm just curious to see what will happen. I haven't gone on a trip with this new phone as yet. Another benefit that the newer phones, and using your phone for YouTube backpacking or YouTube videos in general, is that they're starting to get more and more waterproof and dustproof. And so when I first started filming with my phone, I had to be careful of rain, had to be careful of dropping anything. But once I started from the iPhone 7 onwards, I film in the rain without a concern, and it works, I mean, really, really well. So your phone is all you need. I've used Android phones from the very beginning before I got the iPhone 6. And one of the reasons I switched to iPhone is because of editing, and we'll get to that in a second. But now that phones are pretty much waterproof and dustproof, I have zero concern about taking this thing out and filming on a backpacking trip. That's why, at one point I actually purchased DSLR style camera, and just for me, too many settings, too bulky. I would probably use it here for talkie type videos like this one, but not much else. So that kind of covers backpacking trips, I think. Audio for backpacking trips, I just use the internal microphone. I've just gotten really good at, or I think I have. I've gotten better at manipulating where my voice is in relation to the microphone, and being aware that sometimes to narrate, I may have to put my face pretty close to the microphone since it's facing outward. And so I just have to monitor that and keep track of that while I'm filming out there. So here in the home studio, and I'll take you guys on a tour in a second, and after we're done, after the outro, stick around for the book tour, because I know a lot of you guys are interested in the books that are on the shelf behind me, or kind of call out titles. I know a lot of you guys do that. But here in the home type studio, I do have a tripod that's fairly new that I got set up. I'll show you guys that while I'm doing the tour, as well as the new lighting. You may have noticed, hopefully, an increase in production quality in my last video compared to other videos before. I try my best when I'm filming to film outside, just because we have a lot of natural light, and that's hands down I find the best. When it's wintertime or it doesn't fit my schedule where I can film during the day, I'll film it at night once my kids are in bed, and then I'll rely on the lighting that I have. The lighting that I used to use, and I have used for years, is actually, you guys are gonna laugh, it's just such a janky setup, is this. I just used a desk lamp for a long time, and that's why you'll notice sometimes some shadows in my videos, and some people have mentioned, bring your key light up higher, and I laughed to myself because there's no real key light. All I do is I turn on the overhead light, which is not very good in this room, and I have two of these bad boys, and I have to play with the angle and make sure that I am pointing it the right way, or I found that directly facing right in front of me is best. Now that I know a little bit more about lighting, I probably would do things differently, but these are cheap. I think I picked them up for $10 at Walmart, and I picked up the fluorescent daylight bulbs, and I think these are like 100 watts or something right now, and it's worked well, or it's done good enough to kind of get things started, because I find that the lighting in the videos in the past have really annoyed me, and I'm kind of a perfectionist when I go through and I try to edit and I watch and rewatch, and it bothers me, but you make do with what you have, and this is what I used for a very long time on these in-home type videos. All right, I think that covers it. Oh, audio, which I'm using right now, is just a wired lapel mic to my phone. I don't bring this on backpacking trips. I usually use this for in-home because it's wired. It just can get in the way. I just don't bother to bring it. If I have some camp scenes where or some scenes where I'm outside and I can use the microphone, I try my best to use it, because I find that the audio is like one of the most important things. Yeah, the video is important too, your lighting, how things look, but most people, what they care about, if they can hear you and you're communicating good information, or decent information, then I find that people are willing to ignore some of the video, like the lighting stuff that I've had issues with for a long time. So you don't need a whole lot, and that's kind of what I use. But let me turn you guys around so you'll see, in terms of the framing, sometimes you think that I'm in this huge open space. I realize that. And it looks like I'm in this, I hope it does, it looks like I'm in this special studio or something with the lighting is perfect. So let me show you what I have. Ooh, oh crud. Well, that is the danger. And so this is all it is. This is just my spare room that I use right now. We helped my mother-in-law and father-in-law move, so we have a lot of boxes in here right now. But that was the original bookshelf right there that used to be in a lot of my videos, right like that. And then, oh, the tripod. This is like a Ranger tripod is what I think it's called. But yeah, I'll leave links for these in the description. And of course, the iMac is over there with the Blue Yeti microphone to the right. and I use this for all edits now, and I use Final Cut Pro. For a long time, for years, I actually used iMovie on the iPhone, and that's worked really well. But it's great to have Final Cut Pro. I'm just not using it as much as I should be using it. But boxes over there, ignore that. And this is the spare bedroom. Whoop. This is the spare bedroom, and my daughter's sick, so she's been sleeping down here. But let's talk about lighting, I guess. Let me get up. But this is what it looks like now. And it hasn't always looked like this. But I have these two soft boxes set up, and I kind of like how the lighting has been going. And so let me know what you guys think, if you've noticed a difference in videos. But this is what the framing actually looked like from here. I always laugh when I show people this, or when people see just the overall setup. And so brief book tour, I guess. I like to change out what's behind here so you guys never get super bored at staring at the same thing. But I'm a huge Brandon Sanderson fan, and so one of my favorite novels of all time has to be Elantris, and that was my first introduction to Brandon Sanderson. And so if you haven't read his stuff, check him out. But yeah, you'll see I'm a big fantasy buff, so Terry Brooks stuff, lots of Brandon Sanderson, and Watership Down is my wife's favorite book. That's why we have 2 copies there. I'm sure there'll be a third somewhere around. But the Stormlight series is the one that I'm into now. Let's see, C.S. Lewis, Allegiant, those kind of books. But the Shannara series I'm a pretty big fan of. Let's see, Aragon, Eldest, Brissinger, and the Inheritance series by Paolini is one of my favorite ones as well. I just like to read those. And this is more my wife's bookshelf, I think. I'm not seeing anything that stands out to me. Oh, Fahrenheit 451, of course. And A Walk in the Woods by Bill Bryson. Oh, and A Wrinkle in Time series. How could I have missed that? But yeah, this is kind of what it looks like. Let me put you back in. Let's return to the illusion. That's another one of those reasons why I bring a phone on those trips, because I don't want a really expensive camera, having to drop it in water, or having to protect it from the rain, or buying a weatherproof camera. And so that's why I kind of stick with my phone on these kind of trips. I saved it the last couple months from the Patreon support that I get, and upgrade the lighting, because I thought it was time that I did that. And especially with winter coming, I wanted to make sure that things were high quality. So thanks for those of you guys who support me over on Patreon. I think that's it. I can't think of anything else. We did the book tour. We looked around. Oh, in terms of editing, I did mention that I used iMovie for a long time. I use Final Cut Pro now, and I'm not a professional at Final Cut Pro by any means. It's just one of those things there's so much I don't use and so much I have to learn. But that's what I use on the Mac, and the Mac is new from I want to say last Christmas, so it's about a year old now at this point. I think that's kind of it. It's pretty simple, right? That's all I really use. There's no real fancy or super expensive things at all. The most expensive thing that you're looking at is probably the phone, and this is honestly overkill for what I'm doing right here. You can buy, if you're with an iPhone, I'd recommend the iPhone 7 and up in terms of generations, because of the optical image stabilization. In terms of Android phones, I know the Pixel has some really good camera quality. Pixel 2 is the last generation, and Pixel 3 now, I haven't heard as many reviews about it, so I wouldn't know. But something to consider is it's not very hard to kind of get started. Probably the most expensive thing in the setup right now that's new is the lighting, and I just need to get some space for that. Hopefully you found this interesting, even though it's not backpacking related. You can probably tell I have a cold. I'm really congested, and so I didn't want to do anything outside or anything where I'm talking about backpacking. So I just thought something a little more informal to give you a behind the scenes look at the home studio. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Thanks for watching. Peace.